If you're wondering how many risks do you have to identify, this really depends on the size of your company. So if you are a very small company, only a couple of employees, then only a couple of dozen risks will be enough. Whereas if you are a company of a couple of hundred employees, then you can list up to, I don't know, 500, maybe even 1,000 risks. Now let me show you how this number of risks can multiply very quickly if you're not careful enough. So let's say that under assets here we pick a new asset, cabinets. And then we click next, and then let's search for these cabinets here. Okay, then we have suggested like a dozen of vulnerabilities, and let's pick all of these vulnerabilities that are suggested here. And then we move on to the threats. And again, let's see where these cabinets are and where these threats are. For each of these vulnerabilities, you see several threats. So for this first vulnerability, you have all these threats here. Let me pick all of them. Now, just for you to understand, we had one asset and then we had a dozen vulnerabilities, and then for the first vulnerability we actually have what, 6 threats. And if we select 6 threats for each of these dozen vulnerabilities, you would have 6 times dozen, this is more than 70 new risks only for one asset, right? So what you have to keep in mind is that you don't have to select all of these vulnerabilities, you don't have to select all of these threats, you should be only selecting the ones that are really relevant, the most relevant, because otherwise you will simply have a huge number of risks, which is simply not necessary, especially if you are a smaller company.